Hello, my name is Ben Hockland, and I'm here with the Diversity Center, and today we're going to talk about the intersection of the African American civil rights movement and the LGBT civil rights movement. Many of the pivotal people of the LGBT movement were also members of the civil rights movement. James Baldwin, author, playwright, and poet, his literature is highly praised and recognized as key materials for both studies, with Giovanni's Room being an academic favorite. Miss Major, activist and organizer, she participated in the Stonewall riots and fought for sex workers' rights in the 1970s. She would go on to be a leader in trans civil rights and is the current executive director in the Transgender, Gender Variant, and Intersex Justice Project. Marsha P. Jones, early instigator in the Stonewall riots and co-founder of STAR, Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, and would later go on to be an AIDS activist in ACT UP. Sylvia Rivera, pivotal member of the Stonewall riots and co-founder of STAR, Sylvia Rivera would become one of the founding members of the Gay Liberation Front and Gay Activist Alliance. Bayard Rustin, organizer of the March on Washington in 1963, Rustin was openly gay and considered to be one of the most brilliant strategists of the civil rights movement and a fierce advocate of gay civil rights. Rustin would be one of the few people brave enough to participate in a televised debate with Malcolm X. Jack Nichols. We marched with MLK that day, 7 of us from the Mattachine Society, and from that moment on, we had our own dream about a gay rights march of similar proportions. Audre Lorde, pioneer of lesbian and gay civil rights, Lorde was openly gay and spoke at the 1979 and 1983 Pride marches on Washington, as well as the 1983's African American Civil Rights anniversary of the 1963 March on Washington as one of the platform speakers representing the National Coalition of Black Gays. Audre Lorde was one of those most prominent black lesbian feminists in literature, first to coin the phrases of silence equals death, through her literature, Sister Outsider, and the transformation of silence into the language of action. Coretta Scott King. King was an active advocate of African American civil rights in college, where she would meet Martin Luther King Jr. Together they would go on to lead the civil rights movement of the 1960s and would later go on to fight for lesbian and gay civil rights, as it was the natural continuation of Martin Luther King's work. King consistently used her husband's philosophical utterances in her speeches advocating LGBT rights, transforming them in the continuation of civil rights. Gilberto Giraldo, director of the NCBG, the National Coalition of Black Gays, organizer of the lesbian and gay marchers of the 1983 anniversary March on Washington, of the 1963 march preceding the 1983 Pride March. Darlene Garner, LGBT activist and co-founder of the National Coalition of Black Lesbians and Gays, she is nationally recognized for her work in ministry in her work for LGBT religious inclusion. Her pull towards the ministry was her political activism, as she was a member of the Philadelphia Mayor's Commission in Sexual Minorities and as a Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, where she worked with many people who experienced discrimination based on sexual orientation. Bernie Sanders. Sanders was an active participant of the civil rights movement and a participant of CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, going on to lead the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and a participant of SELMA. Sanders was a participant of the 1963 March on Washington, and in 1961, Sanders organized a 15-day sit-in at the Brooklyn College to fight housing discrimination against African Americans. Many may remember Sanders' campaign for the 2016 presidential election. The most conspicuous pride flag was created in 1978 by Gilbert Baker. He was asked to create a new flag, uniting us, including all people. The flag was created to inspire us to live by the virtues that the colors of the flag represented: life, healing, sunlight, nature, harmony, and spirit. And glitter. However, we find today that not much has changed. Rather, it seems that many white men of the LGBT community continue to perpetuate the overt racism against our black and brown sisters and brothers. Women of color and transgender members are especially susceptible to this erasure from society.
Human rights, right? Human rights, yes. Yes. Big. Yes.
Philadelphia's Office for LGBT Affairs has launched a new campaign to honor our history and the intersection of these great movements, and to give recognition to those who are still excluded today. This campaign, More Color, More Pride, has made efforts to bridge the divide still perpetuated by society. The pride flag was created as a symbol to free us from the triangles that the Nazis made us wear. The flag was made to unite and to be inclusive to all, a beacon of hope, of virtues that we would aspire to. Philadelphia aims to try and offer a symbol of representation to heal our communities and bring harmony to our spirit. Did anyone else notice that the black and brown stripes were above the red and orange stripe?
Just a start.
And
but it's a start.
It's almost like we're saying that
to not just talk about being inclusive, but to finally do
matter and should be a part of society. What a revolutionary concept.